Alright, that was Kasam Archivary Lanada. What Korea Song Dunga, Korea Dunga to get some danger, then the Korea Dunga de let the Matana Tabmido, Korea Dunga, Tarkodu, and Big Korale. And engage somebody, then a rang jibo, Maji Shasimja Tamje, Dewa Dunga to be cheaper, the Simja Dewa, the temper shows some diada. Then Simja Dunga, the Jawa shows in Bendigo. Then Simja Dewa, the temper, the Dunga, the Jawa, the May Chigin, Shale. Pemba the new Dugins and Big Denip Chiga Lassam Kurdukia, Kurkeki, Lassan the Kie. Then the Zang Simja Tamjigton Sanyokoba Topper shows and Bigida, Jenshu Sem Kie. That Simja Tamjigton the Sanyokoba to be Chudo de Dangi, Lunga Isum Yetum Surum Suyata, and Jimba, Jimbian the Shevata, Junja someday, and Sherry Yamnetiki Chigin, Sepik, some Daja Susuki, all those in Yamne, Count to Uche, all those. The Tambo and the nation on the ocean and Yaman Chile, Sosolia, and you are Tejalodi, Yagia to Dini, Sosarangi, that Jiggy, Naki, Yaman Chiagi, that Denegita, two more Lamjan Seti, Dina Lam the Chang, Denegino, Gombigeta, Sosaranda, Naki, Yaman Chiagi, Debata, Dunyaki Tumbaki, and Naki. Yamnenji, Union Tong, then Yamnenji, Chiakudu, and Betuin to Tumbaki, then two more lamb to Cuba, all those cinemas of the shire.
Good morning. So now a few days together, we've covered the trainings that we need to engage in order to progress through the various stages of training, stages of mental development, in order to arise as Buddhas. So firstly recognizing the great opportunity that this rebirth brings, but developing a sense of urgency through recognizing its impermanence. One needs to reflect deeply on the sufferings of samsara, both the lower realms and especially those of the high realms, coming to develop both a deep wariness for cyclic existence and a dominant aversion or rejection even for the afflictions, the cause of our suffering, thereby giving rise to definite emergence. Then, with that mind well established, which comes about independence on looking at one's own situation primarily, one is then ideally suited to lift one's gaze and take into account all those around you and progressively take into account all sentient beings, recognizing that at a fundamental level, there is no difference between us. None of us want to suffer. We all want to be happy. None of us rejoice when we encounter problems and difficulties. We all want to abide in lasting happiness. So here one is already, through the mind of definite emergence, given rise to a determination, I want to attain lasting happiness. I want to gain freedom from suffering. So these minds we now express towards all beings, ourselves and all beings. And these are the expressions of the minds of love and compassion. May all beings abide in lasting happiness, love, free from all forms of suffering and difficulty, compassion. Meditating on this again and again so that it arises in one in such a powerful and sustained manner that one is now no longer satisfied with this mere wish. It's powerful and it's dominant within, but it is still just a mere wish. Now one determines, I take this as my responsibility. It's not merely enough that I want my mother sentient beings to abide in lasting happiness. It's actually my responsibility that they are led to attain such a state. Here one generates the wholehearted resolve. But recognizing that oneself is still bound in samsara, one therefore cannot lead others from experience, and moreover, when one considers the wide variety of karmic dispositions or karmic backgrounds that beings have and thereby their varying dispositions, how can one guide beings precisely? One has to become the most skilled of guides. Therefore, in order to benefit others, I am going to become a Buddha. Then one generates bodhicitta, meditates on this again and again so that it arises in an uncontrived manner. With the generation of bodhicitta, one recognizes that merely developing bodhicitta alone is an insufficient cause to fulfill one's desire to become a Buddha. One has to accumulate further causes, the 6 perfections. So whilst one is training, one engages in these 6 perfections. Whilst one's training one's bodhicitta, one already engages in these practices of generosity, of ethics, of patience, of joyous perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. And having trained well like this, repeatedly over a sustained period, gaining some experience of all these minds, one then is ready to enter through the gateway of those of immense fortune, to enter into the trainings of secret mantra. And there we looked at, firstly, one from a genuine teacher receives initiation into a practice, or one receives empowerment so that one is empowered to engage in practice. When one receives initiation, one accepts the vows of secret mantra, and one receives oral instructions, samayas. One recognizes then these vows and samayas have to be guarded well, kept properly. And one then comes to study how to train in the tantric practice, and thereby recognizing that one needs to engage in the 2 stages, and first the generation and completion stages. So this then is what we've looked at over our days together.
Tisnada tumo namjo indu du gyuyongdu, ane de jaya de karresene, dene ngagi nyamne chebala wangshu gores, wangshu, dene wangshu ne, wangshu bi kaso, da lame tamse da domba di yabu sung, dene sung wi tohne da dambo tamse domba sung, wangshu tamse domba di yabu sung, dene di jaya ya, ane karche goresene, da gerim na zorim sedi, odus chene nyamne che gores, odus chene nga zu kasan, da di shubas, di dordi di shushan de ale. Okay.
So just to repeat then about the final part that we looked at, because it's just been most recent, that to enter into Tantra, one receives initiation or empowerment into Tantric practice from a genuine teacher. Then one, in that process, one receives vows and samayas, which need to be guarded in the same way that we guard our life. Then learn about the practice to engage in, and engage in the 2 stages of training, the generation, and then independence on completing this training in the generation stage, the completion stage.
Jagu, Jugu, Naju Lame Gu said, and the Shimba Shiung Gore. Chizan Jagu said, Dina Gudi Shina, that Jagus does, that does Hanzomana does Damboros, Dine, Jugu said, Dile does Toa, the Jugu said, Dile Toa, Najugu. That Lame Najugu said, that it so Chisho the gate, that's all the Direda, Tosho Dire, Yamna Jagi, Tosho Dire. Chizada, Jagu and Jugu de Solia, the Gerim Nazorim said, she go mare, Yamna said, Yamna. 가가지고 온 걸. 다들 먼저 기름 조름 쉐딩 쉐딩 당아도 나줄라메 규디라 게시 걸. 제사디네자 나줄라메 규냠네 제도다 어다 왕슈에 되는 왕기 담짓도 받게송. 되네 기름곰 기름냠네 제 디젤해야 되는 조름냠네 제거를 해야 돼. 다 기름 조름 해야 돼. 나줄라메 규디 시나네. 다 토쇼 나줄라메 규냠네 제 다도 쉬어래.
In the 12th verse, which we looked at yesterday afternoon, the first line refers to the classes, or mentions the classes of Tantra. So there are 4 different classes of Tantra, which one can train through in a progressive sequence, starting with Action Tantra, moving to Performance Tantra, Yoga Tantra, and Highest Yoga Tantra. So there is a difference in these the method of training in these various classes of Tantra. And what we see at the end of the first line, the 2 stages, this specifically refers to, as was said, generation stage and completion stage. And those 2 stages are found in Highest Yoga Tantra. The earlier two levels of Tantra have a different method of training. So when it says 2 stages, it's referring to the 4th of the classes of Tantra, highest yoga Tantra.
anda jegi de jugi na jule na jugi gide oma sumbo de la ya tambo nyamle chegalan wang shugo jibare tenne damsi to tombo sumbo ba jibare ina de kirim no solum sadi ko mare.
For the lower classes of Tantra, so those below the highest yoga, so the first 3 classes, one also needs to receive initiation, wherein one will receive vows and samayas, and these also then need to be guarded. So the process is the same. The difference comes in the practice itself. And again, the 2 stages refer specifically to highest yoga Tantra.
Alright, that dinegi, that nyamle jeda de chasa de chu charvichin, that dine ma, that molam gyaro chi chagore. Chisa dine za delea. Dedar lamzan dumbi shinyen da, sujun dubi, dronam shabdenchin, chidang nangi bado jubi so, nyawar shiva jinye labdo sohos.
Now we come to the final 2 verses. So this presents the dedication of merits accumulated, or can be expressed as prayer. So the 13th verse. Thus may the spiritual teachers who illuminate the noble path and the spiritual friends who practice correctly all have long life. Please inspire me to thoroughly pacify and eliminate the mass of outer and inner hindrances entirely.
Da dine da dedar lamzan dumbi shinyen da sedi, chisa da dedar sedi dinyele yang do ane parjin tipi luki da o nyamlen jida rimba lam dunge lam rimba che dine ane sanga tuji tipi lam rimba tige de lam sang sadi chikarsan lam dine ge lam nyamlen chi rimba de lam sang bo sadi karsan nyomo bo koyo dunga le che tingye dewa sanyo gobang toba chibe tabla inza lam inza de lam sang den de lam sang dine ge denbar chibe da chujin denbar chibe giwe shinye ne da de cengye de denba dine giwe shinye de isi ore de da lam zo de shinye da ha se de shinye lam sang bo sen de yago se ora chi da lam sang lam de khare la ne de jinga to de ka ne she bi jamni je la so lam rimba da sang dorji de bi lam rimba nyamne che di ka le she ro o di lam nyamne rimba de so de lam sang bo de ne ge lam de manoro twenge ane chi ge giwe shinye cengye de denba giwe shinye de isi ore da.
The first line. Thus may the spiritual teachers who illuminate the noble path. So the first word, thus, this is our connecting word to what has come previously. So this is referring to what has come just previously, which is the presentation on the parts of training of secret mantra, as well as the foundation, the parts of the sutra parts of training. So those are also what is meant by the noble path. And just to say as an aside, this word I've translated as noble, it's not the word we normally have translated as noble, which is for Arya being. So it's not the Arya path. It could be translated as the excellent path or the good path. So and here then one's dedication starts with those who teach or illuminate this noble path, our spiritual teachers. So this is who's being referenced, those who have taught us some or all of the trainings involved with both the sutra and tantric paths. And why is it called a noble or excellent path? Because this is the method by which one comes to gain freedom from suffering, eradicate one's afflictions, and can be of greatest benefit to others. What is being Darun Dampo, Tsikang Dampo.
Tsikang Dampo de Shepten Ching said in Nigal Jaril, Givish and Lamza de Givish and Kucha Shabbat Temple Show, and Chiro de Givish Kusha Temple, such as the Dampo Shin, the Nigalam Givish and Tinin the Temple Givish and the Kucha Shabbat Temple Show.
And what one is praying for one's spiritual teachers, is then expressed at the end of the second line. All have long life. So one is dedicating merit for the long life of our teachers, of our spiritual teachers.
진짜 람 마노와 등의 기위신에 안에 집에는 미니아 지정한 저기 가상의 기능 등은 예주시바 나신다 저기 원dio 고바 개와 치망아서 동안에 탈지 원dio 고바 람 마노와 때 되네 안에 고비 동안 타달을 탈바토비게 탑람냐 람 마노와 때 되네 안에 심지어 탐지교도 산요 고바 토비 도지도 안 타바침비게 람냠내기 림바차사 때 되네기에는 대한 상하들지 테베 람냠나 차산은 바된바 된베게 계획신인데다 빼마시 계획신인디게 되네기 된바데 만절야 잠 인시에체 된바래 제가 람마디 빼마시 계định 침보래 제가 람메기 되네기 다데 계치모쇼레스 제가 되네자 다 되네기 된가 람마디 구시링도 땡고도 되네가서 게디 람마디 가서 구시링도 땡바이네 람마디게 최 땡제 두자 알레 판바 판도 야침보 용고로 와 되네자 되네게 구시링이 땡바쇼셔야 돼 삼로 되네게 토네 람미게 구송 토숨이 연된제 랑레 진침보 진전베 토네 아니 구세 땡무가야 봐도 주로지 세지 내슈 되네게 몰람자래 엔디마세 나 기회신에서 랑기 기회신에 랑레 많이 배다 샤다 미 최냠내 제게 되네게 지부지게다 람 기회신에 람마노와 좀 기회신 대소기네 구제셔바 땜바쇼세다 랑다 랑기 기회신에 람서 마노와 좀 기회신에다 시행기다 메샤나기다 람마노와 좀 기회 람서 좀 기회신 어디서 샤사다 구세ring도 내바쇼 구세ring도 내바이나 엔데수기 최대 두자 몽골이야 안에 냠내지요 고브라고 그래 지금 국세링도 맞된 바이나 최시 순간 매도 안에 지금 망고질이야 안에 가지고 최냠내죠 고브라고 매발에 되네자다 두 삼다데다 국세링도 템퍼쇼세지 두 스만한지야 되지
The reflection that one should engage in before reciting a dedication prayer like this is to generate a genuine appreciation for one's spiritual teachers. And this is done through recalling what one reflected on at the beginning of our text in the first verse, where one reflected on the incredible qualities of one's spiritual teacher, and so the qualities in terms of his physical behavior, his speech, and mental qualities, as well as his incomparable kindness. And the kindness is seen through that he has attained his spiritual qualities over lifetimes. And these qualities that he has developed within himself weren't solely for his own betterment, but so that he could be of benefit to ourselves, to other beings such as ourselves. So we recognize in this way his great kindness. First his many qualities, then his great kindness. And the kindness is that he trained this long, not just for himself, but so that he can help others, such as ourselves. And it's through this expression of compassion that he is guiding ourselves and others. So here one feels a genuine sense of appreciation for one's spiritual teachers. And here the plural is explicitly used, so that the translator I've used the plural because of Geshe's commentary, which is that one will have perhaps teachers that have been teaching various aspects of the path. Because the path has many aspects and one may be trained in them by different teachers. So here it's quite possible that what one has learned about the complete and unmistaken paths that lead to accumulating the causes for excellent rebirth, that lead to the accumulation of the causes to gain your own liberation from suffering, and the accumulation of causes that will lead you to become a Buddha for the sake of others, as well as secret mantra. All of this comes about in dependence on the kindness of spiritual teachers who have an abundance of excellent qualities. And moreover, one recognizes that if it wasn't for one's spiritual teachers, all the benefit that the Dharma has brought into your life would not have come about. This interdependent relationship, all good qualities come about interdependently, and a primary cause is our spiritual teacher. So with a recognition of the benefit that we've received, we express our appreciation by dedicating for their long life. And final point is these expressions of verses, these expressions of appreciation, we should not direct solely to the teachers we have a Dharma connection with, but to all authentic teachers, whether ours or not, who teach the complete and unmistaken path to enlightenment. May they all have long lives.
Tene sujun jubi dronam shabden chinse sujun juba sideda soso rangi lamegi ma manzu nyamle che jimba ma tensheba dige soso rangi nyamlen lamega nawa najin je soso ge beje che nyamlen che du nyamlen che bala tene anjige 대하나 이게 냠내지네 이게 요거 다 지구시 소수게 세마심바 차바나 냠내지야 고갑대 뒤통로마다라고 말티네 엔사다 소수이네 되네기 냠내지 발야 체령부 안 되지네 냠내시야 고가라고 쇼세하다 안 추시 되네 로 남시리다 되네기 다랑당 랑나신다 냠도 아주 초로 되네기 라미기 마 송샤바 디나진 제네 추진도 냠렌지 핸디게 라다 랑기 최로 대수 차상 야 안에 진에게 냠렌 제발야 아니 냠렌 제주 구시릉부 체릉부 되잖아 냠렌 제고 가라고 쇼세 되네기 냠렌 제발 체릉부 네 투버 쇼세 지샵데 나도 숨을 추진 주비 조남 샵는 징세
Okay, the rest of the second line. And the spiritual friends who practice correctly. So here this refers to our companions in our training, because we are not independent beings, we are interdependent. For us to receive guidance and spiritual training, we require companions because of the wide number of courses that are required in order to receive teachings, to engage in teachings and so forth. It is not a solitary path, and it's not a path solely of you and your teacher. It is the web of interdependency is far broader. So we need our spiritual companions with whom we are engaging in spiritual practice. And here, the prayer is explicitly, may we all have long life. But the implied meaning is, may we have a long life and thereby progress quickly, cultivating the complete and unmistaken paths within.
베시텔리아 퇴섬 제정한 중에다 람님바 차상 퇴스 두수 손샤바데 데니게 텔리아 퇴섬 퇴베제 퇴비기 된달라삼 냠내제베 야구인 치상 소소라게 데니게 냠내제데 무주시 냠내제바야 안 지게 체릉분에지 냠내제 두버쇼 안에들이 마주님도 예되게다 초로 차상 안 데니게 냠내제바야 안 체릉부되지네 안에 어스 냠내제 두버쇼 세야데 삼다이로다.
Here then, we should also recall not just the spiritual teachers who are alive and teaching now in the world, but also this incredible lineage of teachers. So here in particular with this text, we can think of Lama Tsongkhapa, who composed this text, call to mind his incomparable qualities, and call him to mind as a role model, as an inspiration. And then when we think of the spiritual friends, there were companions, the second line. There we can also be aware of this entire lineage over centuries that has kept these teachings alive, and thereby, in this distant times, between now and when this text was composed, we are able to engage in this text due to this unbroken lineage of great beings. So may all such practitioners abiding in the world have long life, and this generation of appreciation for the entire lineage that has kept their teachings alive to today.
다디네기 다치다 난게 봐도 집에 소실에 당한 줄이야 지디네기 랑다 랑기나 안을 쳐로도 얘기다 디네기 람냠len 제발라 단 정한 줄에 바시에서 치바시 아니 중화 추비기 겐다 내염다 아니 디네기 마쇼라서 바당 디네게다 추비 튕기도네 강아 용으로 와다 디네 약강아 채나 아 최제발라 바시 차롱으로 와 아니 난기 겐려야 ane yang sem ma ki ba sem chu ba ane ji ba je sem ma xing bi ge mong ba ma ri ba de ne ge ji ge na nge ba chi su ro da ji de sha kong zhuo la so ba da sem chu ba sem ma ki ba mong ba ma ri ba de ge na nge Nanzu Yamle Chevala Parchi Chakurwa. The Dini Zada, Dinigi, Sosu Rada, Soso Rada, Soso Rang, Choro de Gigi, Alamiki, as a Lam Chasa, Dinde Batelia, Tersum, Gomsum, Yamlin Chebalaya, Dinigi Parchi, Chi, Gen, and Jumo Chubala Sobada, Neamda, Marjula Sobada, Dini Tungi, Gangadiki Parchi, Sewa Parchi, Mishua Shaw. And then Tungi, Nangi Gen, and the Jigger, same Tubata, same Magibata, the new control over the Jeshala Sobat, Moba Maribatiba, Sewa Shaw City, China Nangi Gen Parche, Yamlen Jabala, Bradu Shubik, Talk Tamjen, never Shiva Shaw, never Shiva Jin Lab to Source, never Shiva Shaw, the name never Shiva Lamigi, Lamadamgi, Jin Laroche, says Lucy Malam
The final two lines, starting with, for Latin English, the fourth line, eliminates the mass of outer and inner hindrances or obstacles entirely. Here, one is making this prayer, or making this dedication in relation to both ourselves as well as our companions or our spiritual friends. May all the hindrances or obstacles that we encounter, may we, in the third line above, thoroughly pacify them. So here we can think of outer hindrances, such as conflict in the world. So conflict between nations, of course, this is a major impediment to spiritual development, as well as conflict between communities or expression of anger and hatred within homes. May beings gain freedom of this. May all of these be thoroughly pacified or completely pacified. And also obstacles such as illness, particular severe illness or life-threatening illness. May all such obstacles be pacified. And then also where the materially there are obstacles, may favorable conditions be acquired. Because if one is either impoverished or is struggling to feed one's family and so forth, or if one lacks the physical places where teachings can be given and meditation can be engaged in, may all such hindrances be overcome too. May they be thoroughly pacified. So the outer hindrances refers to our physical body and everything outside of that. The inner hindrances then refer to the afflictions in the mind of beings. May we come to thoroughly pacify these. With these coarse afflictions which dominate us so, may we subdue them or pacify them, bring them to peace would be very literal. Instead of pacify, so bring them to peace. In other words, calm our mind, may we calm our minds so that these afflictions don't keep pulling us into the direction of non-virtue. So this then, we request inspiration to our Lama, Yidam and Buddhas.
Dine shula karayola seneda sosu rangdang ane rangi choro digi denigi lamye lam tunshibe tuyasam gomsum nyamlen jebala tungen 창고에 되게 chi tungen 당한서 tuyasa 당 사야 동야 당 denigi 다 tungen에 지게 choro 용거야 되게 퉁치 tungen 되게 차상 ane 창화 쉬어서야다 데네 난기 퉁게 랑기에네 리버 싸와 ane chik tenek cheba la sherab saba nyuwa la soba tang teneki ane chike jemba tang shishin tempo bayo tempo teneki nyamne chike tungen dese an chi yu tungen dan nange tungen chasa ku gang goya deke chasa pusu soba che changwa shuo tene changwa la teneki lama idam ki chingi la roche saji odu si yung gore changwa zene da kashe yuwa kime changwa shuo se de tungen chasa changwa 차상 강고에 차상 라월 쇼스고 다.
What is implicit in these last two lines is whilst one is making this prayer for inspiration to thoroughly pacify and eliminate the mass of outer and inner hindrances entirely, what is implicit is the way that one does this is by not only pacifying hindrances, but cultivating the causes that will serve to overwhelm them. So in other words, cultivating the causes that will lead to excellent outer conditions, such as good health, having a stable, peaceful home environment, sufficient financial security, to have a place where one can engage in the Dharma, and so forth. So the outer conditions, as well as inner conditions, that to overcome the hindrances, the inner hindrances. This too is done through cultivating the opposing ways of thinking. So we think here of minds such as love, compassion, wisdom, as well as the indispensable companions for all good qualities, mindfulness, vigilance, and conscientiousness. So these we are implicitly requesting inspiration to cultivate, because again, the way to overcome hindrances is through not only subduing hindrances, but through cultivating opposing minds, which is how we subdue the hindrances.
Rangshen Changmegi Dene Kiwi Shin the Kusiru Temper Shows, Denegi Temper Shows. Dene Da Rangi Kiwi Shin Tempi Lamdilla, Sushi the Yamlen Cheva, Rang Rana Churo, Chazan Yamlen Chicken Chazan, de Chazan Yamlen Chevalia, and Chazan Serengbut, Ringbutu, Yamlen Chika Lamigi, Ganawa Nashin, Chinang, Yamle Yawachi, Tuber Shows, some dia. Denegi Yamlen Chevala. Randa Rangi Churoti, the Nigi Yamlin Jabala, Yen Chinang, Chinang, Chida, Chi Parsha, the Nangi Parsha Tamji, Shiwa Show. The new Tungian Dige, Nangi Parsha, Chi and the Chi Tungian, and Nangi Tungian Yamlin Jabala, Tungian, Kare Gugina, Chazan, Sawaji, Drutuba Show, said it, then Druba Show, said it in the Molam Jab, the Negi Druelia, and the Lama Idamnamji, and the Chingy Lavroje, said it to share some time later.
So to summarize the verse then, one is making prayers that one's spiritual teachers who illuminate the excellent path, who illuminate the complete and unmistaken teachings, and not just presenting the knowledge, but are guiding us in cultivating this knowledge, may they have long lives. May they abide with beings, teaching them, guiding them. And also, may all the practitioners of the Dharma, so ourselves and our spiritual companions, may we also have long lives and utilize those lives well. So not merely to have a long life relaxing in this excellent rebirth, but to make good use of this life. And how to do so? By following precisely the advice that our teachers give us in the teachings, learning the meaning of what's being taught and following the guidance in how to cultivate those good qualities, cultivate the Dharma within. This is the purpose of myself and my spiritual companions to have a long life. May we do so. And to bring that about, the third and fourth line, may we eliminate and pacify completely all the outer and inner hindrances through cultivating the required outer excellent conditions and the inner good qualities so as to overcome the inner hindrances, the afflictions. So that in summary is the 13th verse.
소수 지부 몰란제바 마인바 소수의 초로디기 간 데네기 냠내 약보 제투바 체링부 내지 냠내 제투바 튕긴 차상 상제 상화단 가견 파시 제시 냠내 제투바 쇼스 몰람제야 나 초로기 냠기위 냠내 제바데라 아니 직가 배 야구레서 배 야구 통야다 제수 일한 제리 용거로 와 진짜 니네자 델리아가 제수 일한 제비게 개와 봐도 봐 사고래 진짜 니네기 도시네 There
are several reasons why in our second line we are encouraged also to dedicate and pray for our spiritual friends. So just to say, as a translator, in this context, spiritual friends means like companions, as opposed to spiritual teachers. So the reason is, as already mentioned in terms of our spiritual friends, our companions, is because it's independent on each other that we can engage in the Dharma and we can grow spiritually. But moreover, further reasons why to dedicate for each other's spiritual well-being and long lives is because it comes together with rejoicing in each other's endeavors, in each other's virtuous endeavors. And this is important to do because the minds such as competitiveness and jealousy are afflictions. These hinder us. Why be jealous of those who are progressing towards happiness? Why be competing with those who are progressing towards liberation? This should be our heart wish, wanting others to be happy. So here, by dedicating for them, in effect, one is rejoicing in their virtuous endeavors and wanting them to be ever more successful.
추진 주변 조남 샵텐지스 조사야 될이야 당한 저기 소소다 냠도 냠내 제행 기루 지고 로마 지과로 지대 저러지 대하고 뒤로와 디 멤버에 당한 저기다 디숨 나셔로 앞에는 zemle 나려야 디 미다 라다 다지 타른 거와 예외네 되니게 기회 신인 천이데 된바 지최 기회 신인데 바 천이데 바 디기 나 람상 되니게 람차상 된데 디제소자데 냠는 수지도 제한디 가서 수도 수이네 안 되네게 냠는 제가 차상이야 만에 괜찮게 봐셔 탐지시 난게 친한게 튀는 맛 상황 탐지 상황에는 냠는 야부지 도를 쉬어야지 오늘 뭐는 디나데 삼단 나쇼고 당고 그래 일단 와는 다 계신 뭐 유차로 그러와.
And to make this prayer particularly vast, it's important that these first two lines are expressed to both one's own spiritual teachers as well as all genuine spiritual teachers throughout the world who are teaching the complete and unmistaken path. As well as the second line, not just ourselves and our own spiritual friends, but all practitioners who are striving to cultivate the good qualities within. We should dedicate to all of them so that their outer and inner hindrances are completely eliminated through quickly developing all required inner good, excellent conditions as well as outer conditions. So this is really important. It makes our dedication far vaster and is much more in line with the motivation of the Bodhisattva.
예보지기 안에 상이 좀 내대나 안 상이 좀 내대 염도 다 개로 되니까 코르망부 되니 휴제 안 제가 샤라부 최보부 제라고 개침부 최보부 도신 개침부 부고레스.
Rejoicing in the virtue of others is really of immense importance and all too often overlooked. And rejoicing with real sincerity, really being happy in their success. So to illuminate this, there's a story from the Buddha. He was invited, together with his large retinue of many monks, was invited to partake in a meal or invited by a king.
denege puyodo denege puyeji mani dadu shudyada denege mi longmo 교우지 롱하로 지든 많이 닷만이 칼라다 된데 롱한디게 칼라요스디 와리 용으로 하되네 마데디다도 거두시네 롱모디게 삼다버레스 단 나란 대배 교슈레스 다지가 호스마 칼라고는 미전의 롱나 사고 거레스 다지는 개보 그런 게 명언에 다네 덤바시게 두바 야데니 슈 데니기 콜 개롱 멍보 데니 슈제 델야 안직 최고배 마스 선음 신보 시오시 사바르 빼마서 야부레스 denege jesu ira shiuchi geje denege da maomba ngala ya dene jona pe aburwa sambe dushin jesu ira shiuchi geba deje.
On the outskirts of the grounds where the Buddha and the monks were receiving this feast were beggars. If the beggars would have been there hopeful for some leftovers later, but one beggar in particular, she looked at what was happening and she thought, oh, I'm impoverished. I so wish I could give, but I can't. I don't even have for myself, let alone to give. But our king, he is so fortunate. He has the opportunity to offer to the Buddha as well as this large number of monks.
다 그런 게 민계보에서 민침보여 제가 되네서 다 배쳐봐 개침으셔도 땅이 되네 그 쳐봐 개침으시고 땅아 디링이 다 직배지 미소기래 쳐봐 개침으셔야 되네 그 땅아서는 침보 사요랬습니다. 그런 데스 보고로 된 다지기 되어와다 등아 개보인다 등아 산다나신 등아시고 직상에 좀 되는 데네 휴쟁에 쳐 그진 되네가 되어두스긴 개침으셔야 되네 되게 so there's sport which that and that just ming rules there's some go out nangasunum jashimo sayo some big that ngabe awore some big dene some rush there's ngayero the ming rush power there's your what that dene sometimes that give you some person that dene sawen that and that sanyi chimne dige yang owa jabdu kala ngai kebi mingji tuen che owa jab jogudo some record some nali sare dile shue dile ngai ming ton ro she labna ya go marwa dine koran sam dana garja sin senam ngai che yo sa yo sam je dine san ye chimne dile ya she la che san ya and de ngo wa di ta dina de senam che sho sa kan di ming di mo ye ne ngo wa ja ro she ya shu ba de je ne ye wa.
The king, on the other hand, his motivation was a bit mixed. Of course, he wanted to offer to the Buddha and all these monks, but there was a part of his motivation which was, I want to offer to such an esteemed and large community because I will get a good reputation. Amongst my peers, the other princes and kings in the area, I will be known as someone of not only great generosity, but great wealth. This is fantastic. So here the king is thinking, his motivation is very mixed with also these worldly thoughts about reputation, what others will think about him. So then, but he knew this wasn't an ideal motivation, so he tried to hide it. And the way he tried to hide it was by requesting, at the end of the meal, he requested the Buddha to please dedicate the merit accumulated, and to dedicate it to the person who had created the most merit from this offering. So it was clear he thought that was going to be himself. But he was trying to mask his excitement at this by making this request to the Buddha. But much to his shock, when the Buddha dedicated all this merit accumulated to the person who had created the most merit from the offering, he didn't mention the king's name, he mentioned some beggar's name. So he asked, the king then asked the Buddha, how is this possible? Not in such a direct manner, but he was really shocked. So he wanted to know, why was this merit not dedicated to me and this flourishing of my kingdom? How is this possible? So sorry, the person who asked the question wasn't the king. I guess he was masking his shock, but someone else asked the Buddha the question, how is this possible? And the Buddha replied, it's not that the king didn't make merit, he certainly did, but not nearly as much as that beggar did, because the beggar had a motivation based in sincere faith or trust, and rejoiced from her heart in the good of others, the good that others were doing. So she was not at all, had no thought about her own reputation or her receiving anything in return, but was sincerely happy for others.
제자 되네자 당한 저기 신이 개화를 지수 이나 제배나 랑기 개화다 신이 개화를 지수 이나 제배네 되네 지 소소 개화 돕치면 사투고래서 디기다 배선로 송고래.
And the meaning here, though, is that it's important to rejoice in the virtue you yourself accumulate, because this inspires you to continue to do so. And it's important to rejoice in the virtue that others accumulate, because this connects you to them, and it serves to guard your mind from competing or being jealous with others.
다데네 양고와 소소기 개와 사셔봐도 고하게래 다데네 마치텔라 개와 군도 양다 라마다 제메 취기 별라 롱주진 사다 람지 연데 랍소네 도시 창교고 뉴토쇼스.
Now we come to the final verse, and I'm just going to change 3 words, maybe more in line with what Geshe has just said. So just changing from my to our. In all our lives, may we never separate from the perfect lamas and experience the magnificent Dhamma. By thoroughly perfecting the excellent qualities of the paths and grounds, may we quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara.
다데 개와 군도 양다 라마 당스 제메스 자메바 아니 취기 별라 롱주진 세데 가르송으로스네 제자당이 개와 사샤바 델라데네 아니 개와 군도스네 체텔리나 안세 라마디라 마자와제 아니 라마 양다별 라마 람상 기회 신인데나 마자와 계지나 라마 양시 제제 라마디스네 취슈제 아니 퇴섬 공손제 냠는제 고합라바 쇼샤 제메 취기 별라 롱주바세데 퇴섬 공손 냠는제 바디소르 당고 체텔시오다 개와 군도 양다 라마다 제메 취기 별라 롱주신 세디 예 개와 사세베 개베자와 딜라데네 체텔라 랑기에네 가소레 라마티 그디나 야네 야도지 마자와세데 냠도 야네 야도지 되는 라마티세네 최슈 퇴섬 공숨 제게 냠는 도시는 제고 브라와쇼세 니가 넌
Here one comes to dedicate, and one's dedicating the merit that one oneself has accumulated, and one accumulated in this life. But one is dedicating the merit for so that it ripens in lives beyond this. So in the first 2 lines, or the first line first, in all our lives may, so now first in terms of the first person, in all my lives may I never separate from the perfect lamas. So here one is now firstly dedicating that the merit that I've accumulated that has all been accumulated in dependence on the kindness and the skill or the qualities of my Lama, may I never be separated from him, not in this or any future life. And in every life beyond this,
제자데 개와 사바데라 되네 체딜이야 람상 기위 신인의 기지사야 마저와 야네야도 라마데지 라마디스네 최슈 되네 퇴상 공손 집에 냠네지에 고고라버 쇼스베 원하게 이제 당보래.
So let's erase what I've just said. So starting again. So looking at the first line and then the second line, but in terms of first person. So one's dedicating all one's merit, so what I'm going to say now is implied. It's not here, but it's implied. That I'll dedicate all this merit so that in whatever remains of this life, may I never be separated from my perfect lamas, those who, through their guidance, through their good qualities and their compassion, who have guided me to create this merit, I dedicate it so that I am never separated from them in this life. And that, now the second line, I continue to receive their teachings and apply myself to cultivate those teachings within. So this is then about this life.
야네 야도 최슈 아니 라마데다 제 야네 야도 라마제 최슈 되네 라마지 최 남사 동하 용수 벨람 냠리 림바 댄시바 델이야 미 퇴상 공소시데 냠리 제토바 규규와 쇼와세데 다두시네 아디 마옴바데 두시야데 두시네.
And then what's explicit in the verse is one dedicates the merit that one has created, so that in every life beyond this, our Lama, independent on whom this merit was created, I dedicate so that I meet him at a young age, recognize him as an authentic teacher, and receive teachings, hearing and reflecting on those teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment, striving throughout each and every life under his care and guidance to cultivate the paths of the Dharma within.
나데네 다 니가 겨와디나 치마 니가 삼단다 대시 레레레지라다 돈나 니가 삼단다 돈나 디송고레 제사당에 겨와 사시베 겨와 딜라데네 세대당 나는 사람네 사람부터 치디점마제 사람네 사람탐주도 아니 겨와 기질 라마이나 라마 양답에 라마 대단체 라메디스네 최슈 나네 최슈지 나네 데니기 퇴상 공소 냠내제죠 고 고갑라와쇼 데니기 요 율교와쇼 세두송와게 체고를.
Therefore, when reciting these first two lines, one reflects, makes this prayer in relation to both this and lives to come. So the verse explicitly talks about future lives, but one should understand it implies this life as well. And the two aspects of both never being separated from one's teacher, but also utilizing the opportunity of being with one's teacher to the fullest extent. And how is that done? Through hearing teachings repeatedly and continuously engaging, reflecting, and meditating on them so as to cultivate the stages of the path within.
데니게 냠는 제제 데네 냠는 제비게 나 또고 줄에게 사다 람유연데 랍존에 제 살람기 림바디게 당보다 안주 림바신도 때도시 냠는 제발에 데네 당한 지금 람원에서네 당보 초람 데네 조랑 통랑 권라 데네게 연된데기도 제 림바신에긴 데네 거나 제 데네 안주게다 장슈 셈기네 초랑 권라 림바드네게 데네 안에 상하도지 티벨람 안게 왕게 왕슈 데네 게레나 조렘게 똑바디게 림바신에 게신데네 사다 람유연데 랍존에서 연된 게와게 연데 차상 바게 차네 조벌 게제 안 도르제 창고 고반유도 쇼스 도르샤 안사게 야와 도르제 창고 고반 토벌 쇼스 대 뉴르도 토벌 쇼스 고고고 토벌 쇼스지 아니가.
Then the third and fourth lines, by thoroughly perfecting the excellent qualities of the paths and grounds. So here one's aspiration is in relation to, may I quickly generate bodhicitta and thereby enter into the bodhisattva path of accumulation, and thereby having attained these excellent qualities, quickly progress from the path of accumulation to that of preparation, path of seeing, the path of meditation, and do so by training in both sutra and tantra, and thereby quickly attain the final path, the path of no more training, arising in the state of, or as in the state of Vajradhara.
아래 다디네 간도에 다두치네 자상하지 말람게 자상 줍사리 대산 디네자 개와 군도에 날라마다 대미추이 별로 롱주주 사달람윤의 랍존에 도시 창교 고반유도 쇼세데 다도 나라 아저기 돌뒤시바나 저중이 개와서베 다고 토메네다 개와 녀만에 다대바도 40배 개와 기회사바 딜라티네 세대당 근데 사람 탐지도 산지고 마도기 바도 개와 기딜라베나 라마 안치 람 마노와팅가 라마 챙이 된바데 예 라마지 제수 송제 라마데 야네야도 라마지스네 최슈 아니 라마지 최슈네 라미게 람냠리리바 댄셔바디게 차사 소수게 아니 지게 베지 준지 침벽권에 냠술에 냠는 제가도 사람 예림바디 경미글에 뇨도 계제 차상 계와 차상 계진 안 뇨로 뇨와 교고 산교고 토바쇼 세비 안다 도시는 몰람야지 차거와.
Summarize the 14th verse then. All the virtue that has been accumulated both now and previously, I dedicate so that I am never separated from my perfect spiritual teachers, not in this life or any future life, from now until the point when I eventually arise in the enlightened state of a Buddha. may I always be with my spiritual teachers, and not merely in their presence, but utilizing their very purpose, which is to teach. And may I not merely accumulate knowledge, but strive to cultivate that knowledge in the way that I am being guided. And this is the method by which I'll collect, or accumulate rather, the excellent qualities of the paths and grounds, and eventually arise as a Buddha.
Dati yogola madoje lamga dile yunringbo khowane phajole ya pe kanga yunringbo yongo chagorwa dine yanza da dinashi nga sosuge sangazi gyoa jetubne dizugi an semjele pandoje di gyoa che semjele kanga di gyoa sedu semje mangbo an sanye sale ya gyoa jetuye khabar yorwa da sosu sanje de yunringbo gorson ne dene sanje yunringbo khoanza dine shenle panba je de sanje sale ba 판도체에 시우지 고고를 받아 예 판도 고고를 되는서 지금 교부 상계와 요새에 소소라는 기부 교고도 선바디 많이 받지 제 삼고 말로 지금 교부 상계와 요새도 다 같이 교화 상계도나 네 디지게는 야심절이야 최대 심지기 동화세 세타바 탐지기고 말 교하고 투구래 대인자 뉴와 뉴도 상계고 봐 도바쇼서야 돼 뒤로 상계고 봐 토야 돼 된다 대신 당배 자유 걸었으면 샘진을 된다 샘진 동화세야 돼 디기 주야라 다 상주고 봐 마돈 탑민도 제장에 샘진 동화세야 돼 디기 주야 된다라 예 상주고 봐 토바 지긴시에 삼다 인자 다 상주고 봐 교거 토쇼 교거 토나 예 샘진 뒤에는 판도 같이 뭐 교가치 투그레 샘비게다 강아 교가세 투그레 샘비게 삼로디 인자다 뉴도 쇼서야 돼 김센디레.
The reason for the term quickly in the final line is when one generates wholehearted resolve, one has been meditating long on love and compassion, and has come, and before that one has meditated long on the sufferings of samsara. So one has now, when one develops wholehearted resolve, has recognized the great need in our world, need for beings to be guided and to accumulate the causes that will lead to happiness and to avoid the causes that will lead for suffering. There's a sense of urgency that led to the development of the wholehearted resolve. And that sense of urgency was further developed with the generation of bodhicitta. When one has made that commitment, I have to become a Buddha for the sake of others, there is a deep sense of urgency. There cannot be a delay. I need to do this as quickly as possible. And where we can imagine this in our own world is if there is a disaster somewhere and there are aid workers, both from the government as well as charities, and they are going to rush into the disaster area to help because they know they are needed and they are needed right now. You're not going to imagine them driving along a long path, taking many tea breaks, relaxing, chatting to their friends. There will be a sense of urgency. I'm needed and I'm needed now. Any delay means people will suffer more. That is the sense of urgency that aid workers have in their work. There certainly is a sense of urgency that bodhisattvas have. They recognize the deep need that beings have for guidance, and therefore they are striving to quickly achieve the state of Ajadata.
제책 용용제 단다 차상 창와 람냠니 림바 도세 텐샤바데 당원저 도체 디리 루바레 대자다 저게 데네기 제르미치 두소아데 베마생한줄이야 지게 그린 침보지다 지 두지 원고 송와자 당한줄 판도 침보데 그린 침보시고 차대 예장 당한줄이 데네기 퇴섬 제 고급라바디 나 결혼서에 선음 침보 사여를 나랑이네 안저기 개와 야 다시 사여를 데네 자당한줄 개와디 나 베마세 가와상보 직차되래 데네 자당한줄 되지 슈바나지 가서서 당한줄 데네 다 상기기 덴발이야 냠내제 제름치 데네 손시게 되래 다게지 제용게 게진 손샤바베 야부이 선배 상계다 제름치기 안에 게진 제수 템베고네 하는 알아줄이야 냠내제 빼 야부 중소 선배게 삼다지 소소라 가와고미야다 데네게 마오바네 데네게 모두시 냠내제라 고가라디 지용을 지긴 선배다 뉘버게야디 예침보 차거래 지사 징한주기 디니 제에 고갑 냠내 제에 고거를 약부를 선배자 되네야 제 제수 일어나 제야다 마오바니나 되네게 냠내 모두 제도가 지긴 선배기다 두시네 만족에 편받다야 이렇게 지버려서.
So now as we come to our final conclusion, we generate a recognition that in our time together, each of us have accumulated an extensive amount of merit. How so? By hearing the teachings and whilst hearing, thinking about their meaning. As well as, so these are all virtuous minds we are creating, and that is the creation of merit. As to, through the other activities such as the meditations and so forth, so much merit has been created. And this has come about in dependence on so many factors. So firstly, we think of the great master, Lama Tsongkhapa, who composed this very short text, but with such deep meaning. So through the excellent qualities that he developed and his kindness as shown through his expression of those qualities in the composition of texts such as this, as well as the great number of beings who have kept these teachings alive by cultivating them in their hearts over these millennia, and thereby we have come into contact with it now. So thereby rejoice in the merit that you have accumulated, rejoice in the kindness of the others who have brought it to the point that we could meet it now, all these many centuries later, and also rejoice in the kindness of all the Buddhas and great beings throughout the worlds who are benefiting. And in particular, a particular purpose of rejoicing in this way is through recognizing the benefit that one has received here and appreciating the benefit that will flow forward for oneself, generate the wish, may such opportunities as these, may I have access to them in the future. May there be no hindrances for me embracing them. May I have many such opportunities and embrace them all. So this is important. This is how we create the causes to be able to come together again and again and continue our spiritual journey. And dedicate this virtue so that one continues throughout this and future lives to be under the direct care of one's spiritual teachers, and in every future life to meet them and to receive guidance and teachings from them, and to train precisely throughout this and future lives in the way guided, so that one quickly can develop bodhicitta and stand amongst one's fellow bodhisattvas.
Gewa Saba, Denigi Aboche, the Dindi Chimambuji, Yuna Jim Mambushile, Jigsaw by Dingo Benza, Denigi Guin, Tone Jungu, Yorwa, Dene Zatan Kizimi, Tashungi, J. Consen and Dusu Teleconsen Dusu Chike, Dene Consen Della Dene, Joran Jugimi, J. Consen de Namian, Wado Matawaje, Denigi, 지게 최 냠렌치야 고합 송시 냠렌치야 라와데 고합데 배 야고래 경서 개와 못 사요. 제사다 만주 되니게 띵고 인자 다 되니 경로주의 다지게 되니게 최슈가 되니게 냠렌치가 참되어 용화인자 델라 띵제 아니 경로진데 내다마 말한게 제 강신과의 경로를 시에라바디 고합이하고 중말에 대한 경로를 때내게 개와사지 내 경로주기 된마 녜셰바 델라티네 경로주기 되어서 된다하고 삼다를 경로를 때네 아주 편지 이게 때내 용으로 때제리 안디나시 안디라 참치게인데 안디라지 도시네 디기 때 내래 참치게 여발에 때지 경로 참치게 고합이라 말해 지나다야 참치게 있네 경로 참치게 여발에 때네 참치게 대체 지상은 최상 편지 때지 나 대한도 최소 여반에 대한지 튕겨 두고 다 되게 강바다 최상 제지지게 요 때문에 되게 때네 지상 때에 망보시 좀제 아 저기 되게 뒤서 사제 개와 빠도면 봐사요 되네 배 야보래 제사다 경로주의 배 야보 중을 투시슈에 나이네 경로주의 되네 개와 사요 바데 가오 중서 투시슈에 되네 제사다 아 저기 쓰는 사제비게 개와디 미게 통해요 말이지 이나다 빠직 체로야 돼 가지고 예를 봐래 세미나를 딱 개와사데 되지 세미나를 샤셔 제사디 마주게다 마시바도 산요고와 마더기바도 마주 개와사 예를 봐지래 제사 되네 개와도 수그나 신루시 지베이나다 마주 모던나 마주에 배 마시 첨부 휴지 차려 가지고 개 마두야게 마고 빠도면 봐사도요래 제사 되네 자 되네제 데 드린 뒤에 야보 중서 투시해 줘야 있나
For us to have had this time together is not something that one wills into existence. It's not merely through one deciding, I will come here, that we have this opportunity together. It's good to be aware of the web of interdependency that is required for us to have spent this time together. So just looking at the coarsest of conditions that are required, the most obvious. Firstly, there needs to have been a public holiday. One needs to have life circumstances that one can enjoy the public holiday as opposed to having to be looking after others or working and so forth. So there are these kind of obvious causes. There are also the many unseen causes that have propelled you to have found out about this retreat, and the many unseen causes that led you to having an interest and a sufficient interest that you booked the course. So there are many things required for us to come together. And moreover, that we have created virtue together. I've created a lot of merit, so I want to say thank you, because if you hadn't come, I would have no one to talk to. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to create merit. And I know by you listening to the classes and engaging in the meditations of Venerable Temple, you've also accumulated extensive merit. So this is the interdependency of how we together walk towards enlightenment. And moreover, it's not just those of us in this room. There are many who outside of this room, have made this possible. There are those who work at the Dharma Center. There are those who donate and contribute in differing ways to the Dharma Center. And of those, there are those who are doing it now, and those who have done it over decades, who have done so decades previously, but their endeavors, their donations, their work has led to this moment being possible. So there we see a wider connection, interdependent connection. And this is how, again, we create merit, independence on the kindness of each other, and this is how we together will walk towards enlightenment. So this merit that has been accumulated, we can't observe it, we cannot see it, we cannot see this large mountain of merit that's been accumulated, because it abides on our continuum. But the way to understand it is that this merit, because of the way it will be dedicated, it will remain propelling us forward, as if we were sitting in a powerful sports car, propelling us forward to the attainment of our enlightenment. And whilst each of us are striving for our enlightenment, we will be progressing together. This is how our interdependent relationships connect us. So I want to say, from my heart, a deep thank you to all of you, because again, it's only dependent on so many causes that we could come together. So thank you.
핑교 말아 제자디기 요시고 원래데 계시고 제자 결혼기 중에데 계규를 때 말에 내시에 결혼을 봐 년투에 대해 계규를 때 말. 제자 다 튕겨로 집에 지금 망부라 참고해 지셔서 되니기 땡되게 남자세 좀 되거든. 야고 중으로 찾아대 되니기 제자 년년 계체와레베 시행 계체와레 기규 계체와레는 순과 계신 뭐 차들 근데 디 계체와레 디 야가레 디 두가레스 시행메데 찾아 순과 직면에 직 마디간 차들 순과 계신 뭐 차들 차들과.
Furthermore, in our time together, I've had a lot to say, and pretty much everything I've said, the sound has appeared to your ears, but no meaning. So for what I have to share, my knowledge and the experience I've gained based on that knowledge, there needs to be someone in between, an interpreter, to relay that. Without the interpreter, I would just be making, as far as you're concerned, just making sound, just noise. And likewise, when you ask questions, for me, I just hear sound. I really don't understand the English that well, so it's just sound, and maybe you're not even talking English. So again, for me to understand your questions, I need the interpreter. And then if we ask ourselves, so we see here this interdependence of the three groups, the teacher, the students, and the interpreter. And if we ask ourselves, which is more important? The truth is, none is more important. All three are required. And likewise, it's such a huge web of causes required to bring us together. So this is the intricacy of interdependent relationships.
Oh, yeah,
Then thank you. Thank you all very much.